Alright, part 3, what it be? This is going to be the last part of what we're going to cover and evaluate the NBA teams entering the 2021 NBA season. As we already know, the season's kicking off today, so I wanted to wrap this up. So for the last 10 teams we will be covering for part 3 is starting off with the Oklahoma City Thunder. Pretty simple. I've already made some videos over this. Let me give a quick overview. So Sam Presti out here is playing My GM, My League in NBA 2K. He's very aware that he needs to rebuild, and not only rebuild through a process of waiting years and years of tanking, but he's going to take that on very quickly by trading away Steven Adams, Chris Paul, taking off first-round picks, and having an abundance amount of first-round picks to where he can have cap flexibility, make trades, let alone it's going to be an appealing spot for players to come to OKC. Now, you do have some bad contracts because you had to retain them by receiving some first-round picks. So, for example, George Hill for one last season. You do have Al Horford on the books for the next 2 to 3 seasons, where he's getting paid over $20 million a season. But when it comes and Trevor Ariza for one last season. But when it comes down to it for the OKC Thunder, they're in a fine position right now. I expect them to be 15th seed through 13th seed in the Western Conference standings at the bottom. It's not a bad thing. You do have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander out there. You do have some young cats you can develop. And they're going to be a competitive, pretty fun team, even though they're going to be at the bottom of the barrel. So they do have around 16 to 18 first-round picks in the next 6 to 7 seasons. They're fine where they're at. This is a great direction. I'm liking the flow of the OKC Thunder. They've always had great management. Sam Presti's probably going to win Executive of the Year based on the steroid Danny Ainge approach he's been taking. Besides from the OKC Thunder, there'll still be a fun team to watch. You have some young cats out there, and I wouldn't be surprised if they're probably going to buy out George Hill and Trevor Ariza during the mid of the season and try to orchestrate a trade for Al Horford. If they have to throw in maybe a couple second-round picks, or maybe there's a veteran team that's desperate for that. But that's OKC Thunder. Not too much to talk about. Let's jump in on number 2. The Orlando Magic. Magic are in a weird situation when it comes to their franchise. For the last 2 seasons, they've always been around a 7th and or an 8th seed. They do have a young, nice direction and core, but the potential of that core is not going to justify keeping the team the same. So they pretty much didn't make any new moves. I did like how they drafted Cole Anthony, who was doing very well in the preseason, especially in his last game, as he went across and went against LaMelo Ball. You do have Markelle Fultz that you were able to sign and extend his contract out for another 3 seasons. Markelle Fultz finally found a home. I'm happy for him, and he has good potential staying in Orlando. I was surprised that they kept Evan Fournier for this year as he opted in. I thought he would have tested the waters in free agency, but I get it. You're in a pandemic, the bubble, uncertainty. It is what it is on that. And they also did extend Jonathan Isaac to $80 million for 4 years. So congrats to the young cat. I'm excited in his game. He is 6'10", a small forward with length and size. He does have good faith, let alone he is in a good direction in the NBA. He's going to translate well as he grows. Mo Bamba, I really want to see him progress. Not a lot to talk about within this team. I think I expect the Orlando Magic probably to finish around the 9th or 10th seed. I don't expect them making the playoffs this season. I expect during the middle of the season that there's going to be some trades that go down. I would not be shocked if Vucevic is gone, if Aaron Gordon is gone, Evan Fournier is gone, and they just kind of retool and rebuild during the middle of the season. The Magic will still be somewhat of a nice team in the NBA, but they're long overdue making the playoffs now. They haven't really justified themselves of changing it up, so I'm probably going to have to put the Orlando Magic as a 10th seed as it is. And speaking of the East that's getting stronger and better, we do have the Philadelphia 76ers. Elton Brand brought in Daryl Morey as their basketball president of operations, handling the GM matters on their side, and took it on very strong. Brought in Dwight Howard, Seth Curry on the team. You were able to trade away Danny Green. And some of these contracts out of there, you were trade away Josh Richardson, bringing in some more shooters for Ben Simmons and the crew. There's been trade talks potentially bringing in James Harden for a Ben Simmons swap. Daryl Morey has denied those rumors and says he wants to stick with Ben Simmons. This could be a diversion. This could not. We'll see. We'll see when it comes down to it. But you still have the same core foundation. You're looking at a starting lineup of around Seth Curry, At the 2, you're able to have Danny Green. At number 3, Ben Simmons. Joel Embiid at the 5. And then at the 4, you're going to have Tobias Harris. And then on your bench, you'll probably have around Dwight Howard, Mike Scott, Furkan Korkmaz, Shake Milton, and some other players along that side. So the 76ers are at a good foundation of 9 to 10 deep. Doc Rivers is the new head coach. I'm very curious of how this team is going to go forward in the playoffs. I probably expect them to lose in the second round as a peak, if anything. They got a nice young direction, but they're not there yet. I think they need another season to take on the next tier. So the Philadelphia 76ers, very interested to see how Doc Rivers and Sam Cassell as the coaches, how they'll adjust within the team, and if they can develop Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid the way that they're supposed to be. And if that James Harden trade goes down. I'm unsure of that. I'm going to have to put the Philadelphia 76ers in the top 4, top 5 seed in the Eastern Conference. Next, we do have a rising team in the Western Conference, is the Phoenix Suns. Big story. Chris Paul was traded over there. That really helps out DeAndre Ayton, let alone with Devin Booker, to propel him to get to the playoffs and have a mentor on their team. Ricky Rubio was that mentor last season. He was a nice floor general, but they need to take it another notch. And management was getting pretty much on their toes to bring in Devin Booker, another quote-unquote star or a nice young piece. I thought they would have gone the direction of an Aaron Gordon, for example. But looking into it, Chris Paul is going to be a very nice fit for their team. Tyson Chandler and DeAndre Jordan really flourish with Chris Paul, the floor general. I expected the same thing with DeAndre Ayton. I think he's going to have a great season. Not make an all-star appearance, but I think he'll be up there as one of those candidates in a bubble player. Devin Booker is going to flourish with Chris Paul as well. All the offense is not going to be thrown on Devin Booker, but you can have someone you can trust in Chris Paul. The Phoenix Suns will make the NBA playoffs. I have them going around a 7th or around a 6th to an 8th seed. I think they'll be in that mix, somewhere over there, but they will make the playoffs, barring injury. You were able to bring in some veteran players like Jay Crowder from the Miami Heat, who has finals experience now, which is huge for the Phoenix Suns. You were also to keep Dario Saric on your team. You also did bring in as well Langston Galloway, Etuan Moore. So those are pretty nice guards that are on the team and franchise for you guys. Phoenix so far, you're looking at a starting lineup of CP3, Devin Booker, Miles Bridges, DeAndre Ayton at the 5, and at the 4 you can either throw in Dario Saric, Jay Crowder, and then the other young cat, Cameron Johnson. You can go any of those ways, you'll be fine. The Phoenix Suns with Monty Williams, they have great chemistry, they're in a rise. I think that they're going to be a very fun team to watch. So, really liking the Phoenix Suns. Maybe they could somewhat resemble of a young 2000s Phoenix Suns with Steve Nash and Amari Stoudemire. Who knows? But I think they'll be an up and running fun team to watch. Next, the Portland Trail Blazers. This is a reloaded team for Mr. Damian Lillard. Last season, they finished with the 8th seed by squeaking in that play-in tournament, losing 5 games to the LA Lakers. But they always had been an offensive threat in the NBA. And now you've added more tools and more ammunition for Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum. So this team is around 10 deep as it is. You're probably going to look at a starting lineup of Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum, Derrick Jones Jr., Robert Covington, and Nurkic. Then off the bench, you have some really good pieces in Enes Kanter, Zach Collins, Carmelo Anthony, Gary Trent Jr., and then a couple, Rodney Hood. That's around 10 deep as it is, as of right there. I think this may be one of Damian Lillard's best teams. I did make a prediction video to where I said I could see them finish around a 3rd through a 7th seed. That's not me copying anything out, but the West is so close together with these teams that I could see anything, they could be around a game or two in a loss or win column, and that can make someone from a 3rd seed to a 7th. So the Portland Trail Blazers will be in that mix. They're going to have a very fun team to watch, even if you have an injury like last season with your bigs. They brought in a lot of bigs on their team, like Harry Giles, the 3rd, Enes Kanter, a couple others. So they'll be good where they're at. The Portland Trail Blazers will be a threat next season. And this probably could be an MVP type season for Damian Lillard. Keep an eye on that. Next, the Sacramento Kings. Not a lot to talk about the Kings. I pretty much expect them to finish around 13th or 14th in the bottom of the barrel of the West standings. You do have De'Aaron Fox. You gave him an extension for 5 more years on the team. They didn't make any moves out there to pretty much justify improvement. We'll see with Luke Walton if he can be able to improve his coaching, let alone bring in the team together. There's not a lot of momentum or motivation for the Sacramento Kings as it is. You do have Buddy Hield who's trying to leave and who management is trying to trade him away. Harrison Barnes, I think his time is overdue. He's probably going to get traded away. And you didn't really pair anyone else alongside with De'Aaron Fox. So I'm kind of curious of how they take things upon in Sacramento. I think they'll finish at the bottom barrel of the Western Conference, and I think after this season they'll look to blow it up and just keep De'Aaron Fox and try to throw other players out there with him. You were able to sign Hassan Whiteside to the veterans minimum, which I was shocked that the market was there for him for that low. But besides from that, nothing really with the Sacramento Kings. I'm going to skip them as of right now. Speaking of one of the bottom teams in the West is going to be the San Antonio Spurs. And that's not a nice thing for me to say. It doesn't sound good coming out of my mouth, but it's not usual. They've always been a playoff team for around 20 years and plus. Always been a contender, but this is the stages to where they've been on the downfall, and they're going to continue to be so. And I was very shocked they didn't make any moves of trading away LaMarcus Aldridge and or DeMar DeRozan. This team has no direction. You do have a direction of the young players like Dejounte Murray on your team, Derek White, who they just gave an extension to, Lonnie Walker, Trey Lyles, and some of these other players, but I don't know why you still have Patty Mills, Rudy Gay, DeMar DeRozan, and LaMarcus Aldridge. You need to get all 4 of those players out of there. They need to rebuild. And speaking of rebuilding, I was shocked that Greg Popovich has not retired as of yet. So, very curious to see what happens over there in San Antonio. I think it's a waste of just roster spots and a team direction, so not too much on them. All right, who we got next? Nearing the end, we do have the Toronto Raptors. I expect the Toronto Raptors, ever since losing Serge Ibaka, Marc Gasol, and how they've been getting less and less every season, I pretty much expect them to finish around a 6th seed in the Eastern Conference. I also expect them probably to lose in the first round. You still have Kyle Lowry. You were able to re-sign Fran VanVleet. You still have your core foundation of Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby on your team. And you brought in Aaron Baines and Alex Len as some bigs out there. Besides from that, I pretty much expect the Toronto Raptors, they're not going to be that true contender anymore. I know a lot of fans have been saying they could be still a 3rd seed, 2nd seed. That's not going to be the case. The Toronto Raptors are going to lose in the first round of the playoffs. After this season, they're going to retool their team. They're going to have to retool with just their core foundation of young guys, OG Anunoby, Siakam. You're still going to have Kyle Lowry and then Fran VanVleet. But not to talk about the Toronto Raptors too much, I think their era is pretty much kind of ending. Evaluating the Utah Jazz, I didn't like the roster moves. I did not like the offseason for the Utah Jazz. They did finish last season with the 6th seed. They were up 3-1 in the first round against the Denver Nuggets, and then they blew that next 3 games, it's bad for momentum. Some players and some teams can't really recover after blowing a series lead like that. Not saying that's the same thing with the Jazz, but their offseason did not justify it. The only true player you really brought in the offseason was pretty much Derek Favors, and that's nothing to bat an eye on too much. You really need to help out Donovan Mitchell with more scoring options. I wouldn't be surprised if they were able to trade away Mike Conley in the middle of the season, anything along those lines. You were able to re-sign and give it an extension to Rudy Gobert for 5 more seasons. I'm not too crazy about that. You really need to help out Donovan Mitchell with a scoring wing. Pretty much, I expected them to try to get a Gordon Hayward during the offseason. That didn't happen. Now you're kind of stuck if you're Utah. And since they're somewhat stuck, I somewhat expect them to finish the 9th seed and not make the playoffs. Because you do have a lot of young teams coming up in the Western Conference, and for the Jazz to pretty much stay the same, not make any really good moves, it's going to be bad. It's going to be bad for them. They can still make the playoffs, but they're going to be out in the first round. I got them finishing at a 9th seed as of right now. And last but not least, we do have the Washington Wizards. New team with Mr. Russell Westbrook. This is going to be a fun team to watch. They're going to be very inconsistent. There's going to be some games they're going to blow out teams. There's going to be some games to where they're getting blown out. Since they were going to be inconsistent, you do have 2-star players in Bradley Beal and Russell Westbrook. They will be all-stars this season. They will flourish together within the season because it's going to be one season to where Russ is motivated. He has goals. He doesn't want people to hate on him. He doesn't want people to think he was the problem in Houston. So he'll go out there. He'll average a triple-double. He'll be an all-star. The Wizards will be a fun team, up-tempo and electric to watch. And speaking of such, I expect the Washington Wizards to make the playoffs. Right now, I got them finishing around a 7th seed. They can be as low as 6. They can be as high as around 9 for me. I'm going to have to put them at number 7. Of course, they'll be bouncing the first round of the playoffs when it comes down to it. But looking at this team, there's going to have to be some more roster moves, more trades during the middle of the season, because you pretty much caught the Wizards by surprise by trading John Wall for him pretty much in like a week or so. So they'll adjust during the offseason. They may sign, who knows, they may pick up Taj Gibson in free agency. They may make a trade to, bring in another big, maybe like a LaMarcus Aldridge to make a kind of core 3, or DeMar DeRozan. Maybe. We'll see when it comes down to it. I do love Deni Avdija on their team, the 9th pick with the Washington Wizards. He's a European star in the making. Not going to say he's going to be like the next Luka Doncic, but he knows how to play the game right with grown men. He does have a good winner's mentality. He knows how to bring up the ball. He knows how to shoot, have the fundamentals, and get the team going. I really like that pick for them. Besides from that, the Washington Wizards would be somewhat of a nice team to watch. All right, well, that covers the last 10 in the NBA, 30 altogether, ending with part 3. The NBA season is starting off tonight with the games of the Warriors and Nets, and then the Clippers and Lakers. As expected for my evaluations, watch all 3 videos. I'm going to run more with more breaking news, and as well as covering the NBA here today. It's going to be a fun season. Besides from that, kick it off in 2021 NBA season.